In his tabernacle that is sealed every evening. Pharaoh came into the divine presence this morning. He purified himself in the waters of the sacred lake. He will proceed to awaken the god with his retinue of priests. For the god is still sleeping, as every night, in his tabernacle that is sealed every evening. Pharaoh came into the divine presence this morning. He purified himself in the waters of the sacred lake. He will proceed to awaken the god with his retinue of priests. Still sleeping, as every night, in his tabernacle that is sealed 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 every night. 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 In his tabernacle that is sealed every evening. Pharaoh came into the divine presence this morning.
1, 2, 3, 4. I go back to the place where I first held your waist. Much is wrong, much has changed. What's the year? What's my name? What's my name? Oh, settle down. It's not fear, but I feel uneasy here. You were light, you were clear. I feel lost again. Are you still near? Are you still near? Ghost, are you still near? Near? Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. All my old friends wish me well. See that old girl who gave me hell. I walk my lines, I walk my floors. A picture of you, and I'm done for. I'm done for. Oh, I'm done for. I'm done for. I was no queen, you were no king, but we could have been anything. Every night that I'd be yours, till flowers rain on one. I don't cry for too long. Something says, love be strong. I hear your ghost in my ear. Please be close. Please be near. Please be near. Oh, please be near. 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 Oh. I hear your ghost in my ear. Please be close, so be near. I hear your ghost in my ear. Please be close, so be near. I hear your ghost in my ear. Please be close, so be near. I hear your ghost in my ear. Please be close, so be near. I hear your ghost in my ear. Please be close, so be near. I hear your ghost in my ear. Please be close, so be near. I hear your ghost in my ear. Please be close, so be near. I hear your ghost in my ear. Please be close, so be near. Ghost in my ear, please be close, so be near. I hear your ghost in my ear, please be close, so be near. I hear your ghost in my ear, please be close, so be near. I hear your ghost in my ear, please be close, so be near.
For 24 years, researchers have been tracking the migration of a whale which has a unique sonic signature, so unique that it appears to have never found a mate. The 52 Hz whale is a unique whale that calls at a characteristic frequency of 52 Hz, a much higher frequency than the vocalizations of most whales. It appears to be the only individual with this call, and it has been described as the world's loneliest whale. At 52 Hz, it is just higher than the lowest note on a tuba. The call patterns resemble neither blue nor fin whales. They are shorter and more frequent, besides being at a much higher frequency. Blue whales usually vocalize at 15 to 20 Hz, fin whales at 20. The 52 Hz signals are highly variable in their pattern of repetition, duration, and sequence, although they are easily identifiable due to their frequency and characteristic clustering. The track of the 52 Hz whale is unrelated to the presence or movement of other whale species. Its movements have been somewhat similar to that of blue whales, but its timing has been more of that of fin whales. It is detected in the Pacific Ocean every year, beginning in August through December, and moves out of range of the hydrophones in January and February. It travels as far north as the Kodak Islands and as far south as the California coast, swimming between 30 and 70 kilometers each day. Its recorded distance traveled per season has ranged from a low of 700 kilometers to a high of 11,000 kilometers in 2002 to 2003. Whatever biological cause underlies its unusually high voice does not seem to be detrimental to its survival. The fact that the whale has survived and apparently matured indicates that it is probably healthy. Still, it is the only one of its kind detected anywhere, and there is only one such source per season. Because of this, the animal has been called the loneliest whale in the world. William Watkins of the Woods Hole Oceanic Institute, who invented the first underwater recording system, first heard 52 Hz's unique high-pitched song back in 1989 when he was studying the mating calls of male whales, which are far more vocal than females. On average, these tones had a center frequency of 51.75 Hz and lasted 5 to 7 seconds. These tones are usually produced in groups of 2 to 6 and were recorded in the Northeast Pacific. The U.S. Navy's sophisticated billion-dollar hydrophone system, designed to track Soviet nuclear submarines during the Cold War, recorded his migratory patterns in great detail each year, cruising from Central California to the Kodak Islands in the North Pacific. He always travels solo, unrelated to the presence or movement of other whale species, according to the original report in Deep Sea Journal. However, the Defense Department only releases data days after 52 Hz has moved on, too late for scientists to dispatch vessels to meet him in person. Unsurprisingly, the cash-strapped U.S. Navy has little interest in pursuing a solitary, love-sick whale.
Hi everyone, it looks like we've frozen, unfortunately, during this transition. We're going to have to restart the computer. It's going to take about 3 to 4 minutes, but we'll be right back with you. Thanks so much for bearing with us. Appreciate it. Hi everyone, we're back. I'm just gonna shift gears and we'll get right back into that piece. Here comes Kaleidoscopetry. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks again everyone, here we go. Well, I'm sure that was lovely, but it didn't have any sound. Let me correct that. And then we'll move on. All right, that's good news, everybody. We got sound and we got picture. We're back. We're going to join you right in a second with Kai 5. That was awesome.
Well, with a bang.
I could honestly watch this for a really, really long time. You used to be able to just press a button and it wasn't crazy, and now it's like, ah!
Here specifically being how songs can move from very kind of like still and stagnant and honestly a little bit hopeless into hopeful and like can kind of triumphant. And I think and doing live looping can lend itself really well to that kind of progression or piece because of the nature of building like layer after layer. It's like you're continually rising up steps. So I think that could be a fun idea to play with.
This sort of depth of like 3 layers of lights. So there's this like real channel of light, and potentially hooking all of those up on different circuits and somehow finding a responsivity to whatever you're doing that we can actually, so then like kind of the lights are a major interplay piece.
I really like this recycle can show. It's crazy. Look at that.
I know, look at the depth, isn't it insane?
Is it just for this show, or are you guys trying to build it up?
No, it's just for the show. Basically, they're both down like this, and you're gonna bring them both up at the same time. Yeah, that's lovely.
So I ended up writing this story that had nothing to do with my life that is like the basis of the lyrics of Ghosts. The way that I think about the loop station, you group your beats together, you group your main vocals together and such. I usually start by having a very clear understanding of my tempo and the key that I'm in so that everything else can dance around and be okay. My a cappella background taught me a lot about choosing a texture almost arbitrarily, but when in doubt, start with more of a rhythm. So the simplest example, I might start with like a mid-range, like very kind of like rhythmic moving beats. Then I'll be like, okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is going to sit above that. It's going to be a little bit higher, but it's also going to be longer. So there's like 2 things different about it. So they stack really well. It's like, okay, cool. Let's maybe add a kick drum to this. Let's add something that's high and moving like a and give this whole loop someplace to grow. Can I do a quick improv for you and kind of show you those things?
Yeah. Are you emailing it?
I just put it in the chat, but I can email it. I also sent out a carrier pigeon, so it'll get there at some point in time.
My money's on the pigeon.
All right, let's try.
Have fun, friends.
Don't be afraid to go. Don't be afraid to go. Don't be Don't be afraid to go. Be afraid to go. All right, we'll do one more. This is a little bit of my song, Hallelujah. I'll do my best. See, I really wanna be your angel. I'll do my best. See, I really wanna be your angel. I'll do my best. See, I really wanna be your angel. I'll do my best. See, I really wanna be your angel. I'll do my best. See, I really wanna be your angel. I'll do my best. See, I really wanna be your angel. I'll do my best. See, I really wanna be your angel. I'll do my best. Hallelujah.
himself in the waters of the sacred lake. He will proceed to awaken the god with his retinue of priests. The god is still sleeping, as every night. In his tabernacle that is sealed every evening. Pharaoh came into the divine presence this morning. He purified himself in the waters of the sacred lake. He will proceed to awaken the god with his retinue of priests.
Sorry about that. Don't worry, I fixed it. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for sticking around. To those of you who are still here, really appreciate you joining us after this performance here at A2SF. I'm Joshua William Gelb, and this is Theater in Quarantine. We are actually at the end of our season right now, so we're celebrating a little bit. I've got a glass of Lambrusco, which is cold and refreshing. And we're going to be bringing in Katie Rose McLaughlin, the co-creative director of Theater in Quarantine, and Kai Five, who you just watched just kill it tonight. An incredible performer. So thrilled to be working with him. And, well, anyway, here they are. So let's just get right to it. Hello. Can
Hi,
you hear?
Josh.
Hi there. You can hear me all right?
I can hear you.
Can hear you. Hi, Josh.
Fantastic.
And everybody
Hi,
else.
Tyler. Hey. Hi. Welcome. So here's an opportunity for all of you to ask any questions you might have about the process, and you can put them in the chat. I'm watching. I'm looking, and we're happy to answer anything that comes up. Just a little bit of information about Theater in Quarantine and what you just saw tonight. So we are New York based. I have a closet in the East Village, and since the beginning of the New York shutdown, we've been producing live performance every 2 to 3 weeks out of this closet, which is 8 square feet, though I will admit for this performance we expanded it just a little bit. So we added about 4 more square feet, so it's 12 square feet. Wow. But we were asked or invited to come by A2SF, and so we thought about bringing in a local musician, and we're introduced to Kyler, and it's been just such a pleasure. So first off, we actually have a question here, so I'm just going to jump right in, and then we can start from there. From Anne. Hi, Anne. Can you talk a little more about your process? Appreciated seeing some of the behind-the-scenes work. Many companies don't like to break that curtain. Katie Rose, you want to start?
Yeah. So yes, something that's always been sort of at the heart of what we do is that we invite audiences in to see the process. We sort of feel like getting to peek behind the curtain just makes you appreciate the work even more. I find, even though I'm present for literally every day of rehearsal and like every day of everything that we do, I'm still amazed that things happen the way they do. Like there is a certain amount of magicness. So in our quest to, make sure that everyone understands that what we're doing is indeed live, we like to show as much of that process as possible. And also something that's really important to us is like accessibility and just showing that it's not, just people squirreling away, making some things and then showing a final product. Showing our process allows you to see that we are indeed human beings. And I think, just giving a little peek to how we do what we do.
Yeah, I mean, process is really important to us. I think in some respects, some nuts and bolts, if you will. And since you saw a glitchy performance, which has become fairly common for us, the more and more we expand our efforts and try to do things like bring 2 video feeds from Michigan into this computer here in the East Village, and working on it. Anyone know what that was?
What was?
Did no one else hear feedback?
Nope.
I heard it. I heard like a loud, like a high ring.
Okay.
Oh no.
Yeah, me too.
I did not.
Sorry if that happened to anyone. Whew, that was. Katie Rose is coming to us from South Korea right now, actually. Speaking of long distance. We work
Maybe
with
it's my fault.
Probably not. But we are here with a video processing program called Isadora, which allows us to take live video feed and manipulate it. And so what you're seeing is actually the result of what I like to call a pre-edit, where I edit all of the work before we bring in the live performances. And so what you're seeing in terms of the performance is actually a little bit of a human puppetry, where I am being manipulated and sort of instructed and guided through the performance by the technology itself. Now, this is a little different because we brought in Kyler, a live musician, and that does change things up for us because we're used to working with such a very strict track and text. And when we work with a live musician, variables emerge. So Kyler, would you mind speaking to that? Like, what does it mean to make these live music videos and perform in this space?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Josh. since I started doing live looping a few years ago, it was important to me to start as much from scratch as possible so I could get really comfortable doing things from absolutely nothing and building like really strong components and such. And like you mentioned, there's still variability between like how fast you do a particular song from take to take. So if someone were to listen to both performances of Ghost tonight, they'll notice it's like, oh, like those are, they have slightly different beats per minute, like between them. And as far as what is pre-programmed, that it was relatively a little bit more rigid. So you just have to like find something that meets and things that can be fluid enough to flow together and such. So I have just really enjoyed the process for myself, engaging with the music in a way that just responds to like what's there at the time, and like in doing the best with what's right in front of you and staying completely in the moment. And that is what we practiced over the past couple weeks, and I think that's why we were able to accomplish what we did tonight.
Yeah, in many ways. I mean, particularly with the second piece we did with you.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really a process of learning how to improvise off one another. In fact, and Julia is asking about the light sticks and how they know how to turn off and on. Yes, it is QLab, but it is in fact a sort of technological improvisation that's using a randomizer in QLab and sound. Isadora is listening to the sound that Kyler is sending, and is in fact randomizing how the lights are moving off of Kyler's sound. So it's a sort of technological way into finding a third layer, yet a third layer to the improvisation. So that's how we're doing it, and good to see you, Julia. Charles is asking, it must be hot in your box, eh? Yes, it is. Now, Shelley asks what the 7 p.m. show is like. I mean, yeah. What?
I just want to point out that Shelley, I don't know if you have seen any other shows other than the 9 o'clock problem, but I do remember Shelley seeing the 9 o'clock problem, and you know, we had a whole host of technological difficulties with that show, also in the 9 o'clock show. So I encourage you to come and check out a 7 o'clock show at some point in time. You can actually, if you have the, you know, go to our, if you have the link for the 7 o'clock show, you can go back and watch it. It was exactly the same, except for all the improvisations were different, and we didn't have to stop the show in the middle.
No. In fact, all of our pieces are archived online in the live form, so you can see them all. In fact, it is dozens, literally dozens of pieces that we have made over the past year and a half. Woo! Now, Andrew asks,
what's the thing between dozens and hundreds?
An exact number, I think. Yeah, it's true.
20s.
There should be something. Yeah, like 50s. 50 some odd pieces.
Have we made 50 some odd
Quartus.
pieces? Oh, God. So, Andrew asks, do you plan to scale your work now that quarantine seems to be lifting? If so, how might you approach that? That's a really great question, and something we talk about a lot. Obviously, the limitations of this space have benefited us. It's been really creatively inspiring, and so the idea of scaling it is an intriguing one. I think the question we've started to ask ourselves, or the question we asked ourselves from the very beginning, as we were starting to dip our toes into the digital, was what is theatrical? Not really what is theater, which a lot of critics are asking right now, but what is theatrical? And how can we use these digital tools to tell story or explore movement in ways we couldn't really otherwise on stage? And so we started playing with things like multiplying myself, video looping in a very similar. Well, we literally pulled it from loop musicians like Kyler, and basically trying to find, and of course gravity. Like, how can we play against gravity? So we started with that question, and now sort of the bigger question is, well, how can we maybe find a space that's a hybrid between the live and the digital? And that's I think what we're looking for next, is how can we bring this digital experience to the stage, preserve the digital work and the work we're doing on YouTube, but also give the audience a chance to be able to see a little bit of the behind the scenes of what's in my apartment, which very few people have seen, which is an altogether different show, but sometimes an even more dynamic one. KR, anything to add to that?
No. I'm fascinated by what else is happening in the chat right now.
There's a lot going on. Norman says scores. Everyone says scores.
Everyone says scores.
Scores.
But I think it has to do with Matt's question, which was what sort of effect do you find that the video delay between Michigan and New York has on your improvisation? And does that cause a particular problem or any benefits?
No, I think they're answering the question of what is between a dozen. Speaking of video delay.
Oh, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Scores. I love scores.
Scores is good.
Scores of pieces.
So actually, speaking of Matt's question, speaking of Matt's question,
you have to give me the benefit of the doubt. I've been up for 24 hours now.
She really has. So speaking of Matt's question, actually what we're experiencing right now is a little bit of the delay that is embedded within YouTube, which has about a 26, 28 second delay from when I am sending the feed to when you're receiving it. Hence your comments are coming a little bit after we had that conversation. And so we're just catching up as we're doing it. You know, it's fascinating. I don't know how much the sync will be different until I watch it, ultimately. My guess is it's actually very minimal. What has more of an impact, as Kyler was talking about, is the variability of live performance. And so, for instance, you know, I did some programming to a recording Kyler had done, I don't know, a year ago. How long? When did you record that recording of Ghost?
That particular one was from only about 3 weeks ago.
Wow, only 3 weeks ago.
So relatively recent. Yeah.
But the tempo changes, and so this, I think tonight was just a little faster, and now I built it to be like kind of doesn't really matter what happens when, but still it's a little different there. Versus the improvisation, in which we are taking Kyler's feed, and whatever the delay may be, I'm hearing it, and so it becomes a relative now in terms of what's being sent out, because I have all the equipment. So I'm sure if someone were to be listening into both the experience of you in the room and me, what I'm hearing in my speaker, that would be an excruciating dissonance. But because because this is just a one way where you're sending me a feed and then we're sending it out, it becomes relative.
Yeah, super relative. So so relative that I would say that there's almost no, like, Josh is dancing, like what you're seeing Josh dancing to the music is what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Okay, there's a lot going on. So first off, Matt Miller, are you? No, you're not. Wow, I'm catching up. This is the delay of me reading the chat. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love when people just like become friends with each other in the chat. It's like one of my most favorite things.
Oh, a score is 20. Huh. This is wonderful.
I had no idea.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, anyway, The relative now. I mean, these like little phrases, the future, present, all of that. Like these, they're not quite oxymorons, but they're sort of. There's a temporal dissonance that we're all experiencing right now, and I love when it pops up in our language, and it just seems like an extraordinarily natural way to talk about the way we've been experiencing time these days.
Yeah.
That's real. That is very real. Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
KR, speaking
Yes.
of temporal dissonance, how's South Korea right now?
Well, it's really funny. It's funny to be, Theater in Quarantine was born out of actual quarantine times.
Yes.
And, those restrictions have been lifted for quite a long time. Theaters are starting to reopen. But I am currently in South Korea where I am in quarantine. So it feels particularly interesting to like re-engage both with some of our older pieces, Kaleidoscopetry, which is one of the first pieces that we ever made, and then 50 Hertz, which we made over the summer. It just feels funny to like be back in quarantine and doing this while also people are like, we're out of quarantine and we're like free, and I'm like, I'm not, I'm stuck in a hotel room. But it's gonna be great when I can get out. Like, I don't know. It was fun watching the sunrise today though during tech this morning.
Sorry,
Norman's... Josh.
What?
Oh yes. No, but I'm gonna back up.
Great.
Oh God.
Norman.
Norman's making personal jokes, which is funny. But Anne Grove asked, Josh, are you a trained dancer? And if so, what technique?
Oh, that's a question.
I'm not. So happy, Anne, that you asked this question.
No, I'm not. I'm just sweaty. Professionally sweaty. No, I grew up I grew up around musical theater. And KR, correct me if I'm forgetting things at this point, but like I grew up around musical theater and studied a little bit of Commedia dell'arte, a little bit here, a little bit there, a lot of experimental theater, and so ultimately it's just sort of like a grab bag of physical theater that I've trained in. And also sort of trained myself in. For instance, 19th century melodrama is something I've been an avid researcher in. And so it's, Katie Rose and I come from a sort of physical theater background. Katie Rose really started with dance. I took one class of ballet 2 years ago. Does that sum it up, I guess?
Yeah, well, so Anne, to get to your question, which is like, no, Josh is not a trained dancer. He's always been a very comfortable mover. Like even as an actor, you can just be like, hey, Josh, do this crazy silly dance, and he'd be like, great. But over the past year, I mean, basically when Theater in Quarantine started, we realized it was such an interesting platform for movement. And how you can really get some interesting storytelling out of just pure movement. And so we started doing these a lot of dancing. And Josh really rose to the challenge of developing, what people consider technique. The pointing of the toes, the lengthening of the fingertips. And then we've invited a lot of other choreographers in to set pieces on Josh. So he's had this sort of amazing training over the past year. And I would say, Josh, you've always been a good mover, but you are a dancer now. No questions.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's been a real sort of an amazing experience. And just heads up, Norman, although I won't address all of your points. I'm taking a vacation soon because, boy, is my body sore after this evening, this day of this work. Now, Shelley is asking if KR is in Korea now. Was she in New York City? Oh, when the interview with Jesse Green was recorded. Yes, so we did an interview with Jesse Green, which some of you may have seen. Shelley may have seen it. That was presented by the New York Public Library at 5:30 this evening. So that was pre-recorded. And yeah, Katie Rose, you were here.
I was here. Being Korea. I was when we filmed it, I was in New York, and I am now in Korea.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I know. I mean, technically I could have done that because that's no, because we go back. We go into the future. I'm in the future, friends.
You can't time travel that much.
Yes.
I can't travel that much.
You are 13 hours and 26 seconds in the future. Now, Anne has an incredible question, which is, where can we see, hear more of Chi 5?
Thank you for that question. You can see here more of my things right on YouTube. That's an easy place. Also, Spotify, Bandcamp, probably your favorite place to stream music. I'm there. And when in doubt, you can go to my Instagram at Chi5Loops, and you can find all my links in one place, or go to chi5loops.com.
Nice. I mean, truly, seeing you just like perform in an empty museum lobby today, over and over, I need to see you live.
Yes,
thank you. I look forward to the chance. Yeah.
I mean, if you bring half of what you brought tonight, it's unreal. I'm just like in awe.
Thank you.
Yes, really.
In fact, may I ask, like, have you, I mean, I've seen a lot of your YouTube work, obviously, which is mostly done in your room. What is it like to perform to, like, truly nothing and David on a camera?
Yeah. You know, the funny part is, in some ways, it's actually easier for me to focus on the sounds when I'm not as particularly focused on paying close attention to the humans in the room showing up. Mm-hmm. So it's like each type of performance is good for different things. So today was a really great chance for me to listen to myself, hear the echo come back off the museum ceiling, which is so cool. Cool. And the few people working tech in the room, I wish they could hear everything all together molding in, but they're just hearing my and they're like, okay, cool. I bet that sounds good with everything else.
I wish we had a recording of what was what they could hear and the sound of it echoing.
Right.
So cool.
I'll take a short video before we leave.
Yes, please.
But yeah, very, very fun. Also recording for people, performing for people live, because then you get to see people's like reactions and stuff, and then everyone's more like a part of it in this room and such. So I appreciate both.
No, it's so funny that you bring up what it's like to hear. Now, because every time we've worked together, we have the audio feed, so I always hear all of like everything that you're putting together, I guess, as you would in a live show. Mm-hmm. Whereas we had someone watching one of our shows recently live, sitting on my couch, and it was like a similar issue where like they're like, I honestly have no idea what just happened.
Right.
Because I'm like, I'm looping the same way you're looping. I'm repeating, I'm like doing half of a scene and then coming back like 10 minutes later to do the other half of the scene. And people are just like, what is going on? So it's really fascinating thinking about I'm going to get philosophical for a brief second. Because
Love
it's
it.
the 9 p.m. talkback, and I'm having Lambrusco. Which is that there's something really wonderful about this type of and why I just have a deep love of loop musicians, which is there's something so wonderful about like this type of performance that is so mediated and so dependent on the technology, and it actually feels deeply rooted in our personal relationships to technology, and maybe in a good or bad way, depending on how you want to read that. So anyway, it's just I find it something really. I love that there is a performance in that room, in that beautiful lobby surrounded by statues. That's just fractions and fragments of a larger whole that can never be understood or decoded until you're actually at a distance from it, and it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, definitely. And building off of that, one of my personal philosophies around looping is remembering that you're giving yourself a chance to play with that time, right, and bend back over itself. And one of my goals is to let the human shine through the technology, to not hold the technology as like king and something to be ogled, but something to be used to show more of my personal humanity and all the different pieces that live inside me at the same time. I get to show that through looping, where my single voice at a time, it's only the one thing, which is great, but
It's great.
Looping is how I feel like I can express my whole self.
I mean, I love that you talk about bringing the humanity to it, because you're right. You're using it in such a like genuinely organic way, right? Like it is singing. It's just a compilation of your own voice. It's so deeply human, and yet so deeply tied to this, this machine. It's really, anyway, I say that sort of, although I think there might be a major difference between the art that you're doing and the art I'm doing, which is that you are so in control of your art. You are literally manipulating it in real time. And that's something I envy. And something I keep trying to figure out, because more often than not, the stuff I'm doing is so interdisciplinary that it has to be kind of like automated, brutally automated.
Right.
And so it's hence why I get so excited around improvisation and things like that, when we can find a mode or a modality for us to like have you be live, have me be live, have the tech be live and responsive, is always very exciting to me.
Definitely.
I'm back.
Hey, you're back.
Yay!
We all missed you.
South Korea feed is back.
I'm gonna read Matt's comment. The way the medium shapes the performances is wonderful. There is something really cool about how you were doing live performances with these different technologies. Thank you, Matt. That's just a compliment. So, yeah. Anyway, it's getting late. It is 10:19. We try not to go too late on these 9 p.m. shows, though we do go longer. We do one thing though, and I didn't warn you. So, Kyler.
We can't give warnings. Then people are going to prepare.
Yeah, but exactly. But while we talk about warnings, then they get kind of scared, and that's good.
I'm gonna run.
We do final thoughts at the 9 p.m. show. So, any final thoughts you may have, whatever, the most trivial, the most profound, the most self-promotional, whatever you want.
I have a score of thoughts. Here we go. We'll chop it into a quarter score. I'm very thankful that you chose me out of the local musicians who you became aware of to join you with this. I'm thankful for this space. the Museum of Arts and Ann Arbor Summerfest for bringing us all together. I am ready to let my voice have a little break, and I want to encourage everyone listening, as well as thank them, but encourage them to keep looking for their art or the next thing that they want to try that they're not sure isn't going to work, and just fall into it face first. I can only say good things happened from me trusting and using my own voice, and it led me to unexpected places like this place today. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. First off, I love the nonchalance of this I'm glad we shifted your video frame, because like the nonchalance and beauty of what you're saying, like with like a Caravaggio somewhere in the background, like don't matter about this, it doesn't matter. Yes, Katie Rose, what you got?
That was just so beautiful. I wrote that down. I wrote trusting your own voice on my notebook. Thank you for that reminder today. I'm super thankful to Ann Arbor Summer Festival for having us, for JD for reaching out, for Jameson and the whole team over there, and Alex for setting up this crazy system that we were like, it's gonna break also, so we should practice what happens when it breaks, which no one likes to practice that. And we did it, and it was great. Thank you to Josh for your just like tireless efforts. Josh and I started working at like must have been like 6 a.m. your time, Josh, right?
It was.
We started texting. Josh doesn't sleep, and the work reflects the like the hard work and the rigor. I mean that in the best way.
He moves like he doesn't sleep.
No, it's just like always going the extra mile, which that shows like things could be okay, but they're great, and it's because of you. And then I also just like Kyler, thank you so much for just like jumping in. And you never know what's going to happen when you like sort of cold reach out to someone and you're like, hey, do you want to collaborate? And we found out quite quickly what an amazing human you are, and really, in addition to, we knew you were a good artist, but like such a thoughtful artist as well. And I feel like we were able to really create, we added a whole nother piece because we liked working with you so much, but just our ability, like we were able to like create some things of quite beautiful things. So I just like thank you for trusting us and for just jumping in, and for not being afraid to use your voice in the room. It was just like so great.
Thank you. Appreciate that a lot, Katie Rose. Yeah. And you too, Josh.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Ann Arbor Summer Festival. Those of you still watching, please check out the rest of their programming. You said something about giving your voice rest. And I guess my final thoughts here are about taking a break. We've been going since March of 2020, and we kept saying we'll take a break, or we'll like take a week off. It was when we did the transition from 2 to 3 weeks, every 2 weeks to every 3 weeks performing, and we said, yeah, we'll take a break for a week, and then we'll jump in every 3 weeks, and that just meant that we were working just as hard every 3 weeks, and it's been a very long and beautiful and short and strange, again, temporal insanity. It feels like a little bit of a dream and a little bit of a nightmare. And I'm so glad to have been taking this journey with you, Katie Rose, and you, Kyler, and to the you, our audience, and the you, all of our collaborators that we've worked with over the scores of projects that we have produced. And I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a little bit of a break. And I don't know how long it'll last. But as everyone gets back to work, those of us who have been banging our heads against walls, intentionally so, we'll need to find some way to reacclimate to the world, and this is the time for that. So, again, thank you all to those of you who have been tuning into Theater in Quarantine. It's not the end. This may sound like the end. Maybe it is the end. I don't know. We're going to have conversations, and we're going to keep talking, and we're probably going to do something in August, and maybe something in the year, maybe something live. Who knows? But it is the perfect time to have conversations around what all this meant. So let those conversations begin as soon as I'm back from vacation. Have a great one, everyone. Thank you all again. Thank you again, A2SF. And have a wonderful rest of your Monday night and the week. Mwah! I'm Joshua William Gelb. This is Theater in Quarantine. Good night.